Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another Vintage Chill and Chat. Sammy Thunder, I am your host. And as I'm seeing Diamond Gems mentioned, it is the first, of course, Vintage Chill and Chat of 2026. So glad to have you guys, everybody here. Um, as far as there's obviously the when it comes to like hobby news and discussions and so forth, nothing ever goes stale. There's always something in the mix. And obviously for this past week, the big news was based on Strongsville. And I mentioned in my one of the videos I did this weekend that I really didn't want to go into it too much because everybody else has really chimed in on it. And really all that I'll say is that I still think it's going to be a great weekend for everybody that's going. I still think we're all going to have a good time, and things are looking better as far as like all the events being planned and so forth. I can't really give any more details on it because I'm taking sort of a back seat on the trade night planning. I do my share, I do my part, but I leave a lot of the planning kind of goes more on Theo and John and so forth, and I'll kind of help wherever I can, so but it's things are looking positive. That's what I'll say. There was a lot of scrambling. There's a lot of things that needed to happen in order to make this work, but I think it's looking positive for these events. But even so, what I'm hearing from other people is that the area that they're doing the Strongsville show in has a lot of restaurants and um, a lot of options in a condensed area is what I'm hearing. And so um, sorry, I'm just adjusting here. A lot of places in the area, and so I know if the thing is that the main focus, this was the way last year, is because that's what everybody talked about, and that's what it's going to be this year, is hanging out with each other, seeing each other again after potentially a year, maybe depending if we went to the national, like 6 months, 8 months. So um, it's going to be great. And so I know a lot of people are staying at the embassy. Some people are staying at the Holiday Inn. They're relatively like 15-minute walk to each other, and you know, I still think it's going to be a great experience. It's going to be great to see everybody. The events obviously taking place with Chris Missouri and doing the YouTube get together on a Friday, and then the vintage trade night hopefully on a Saturday. But even besides that, there's going to be opportunities where we're all going to just see each other. So, and it seems like I was at the Garfield show today, and I asked a couple of the dealers that were set up there because they're going to be setting up at Garfield. I'm sorry, they're going to be setting up at Strongsville. I asked them, like, what do you think about this? Like, what do you think about the change? And one of the dealers who I spoke to kind of shrugged and said, no, I don't have any sort of different feeling about the matter. I still think it's going to be great. So, it seems like we're the YouTube community is kind of having kind of their perspective, their concerns, and I think the dealers are kind of sharing that as well. So, but I think it's honestly, I think it's we're putting a lot of thought into this, and I think once we're there, once we're in the physical space, it's going to be different. I think there's going to be a much different vibe, a much different feel to it, because at the end of the day, at the end of the show, we're all gonna we're all gonna meet up, probably at the Embassy Suites. So we're all gonna have time to hang out there and show off what we picked up, and just kind of engage and converse and just have those discussions that we only have virtually, practically here or in a chat format. So it goes a long way. Let's do a roll call. Andy's here. Good evening. Good. Hope you're well, Andy. Mike Good is here. A lot of football games. Yeah, the Steelers and the Ravens at 8. That's the game I'm looking forward to most. Jake is here. Jim is here. Happy New Year. Mike from Jayhawker is here. Phil Necro fan 35. Hello, everyone. Nick is here. Sven is here. Dan Vintage Baseball PC is here. Trevor from Blue Collar Cards. What's up, my friend? Steve with the PH. eBay is here. Good to have you here, my friend. Rob, good to have you here. Happy New Year. Diamond Gems, as I brought up his comment earlier. Doug from Dave from Peacemaker Cards is here. Good to have you here, my friend. Scott from Radio Studios. Happy New Year, nerds. Mr. Wilhelm is here. Go Bears? ? Craig's is here. Good to have you, Craig. Warren D and CLE, friend. Good evening. Good evening. Max is here. Mookie Chilson is here. Melissa, good to have you here. And just kind of going through the rest of everybody here. I think Adam's Card Closet. Good to have you here, Adam. Right. Blue Rock TV. Good to have you here, my friend. And Mr. Lily Mr. Cards, Keith. Good to have you here. I'm looking forward to your next video on your pickups. Harmon Kilibri 3 Collector. What is up? Brent is here. Brent Richards. Excuse me. Great seeing Dan, Sammy, and Juno, and so many friends in Garfield today. We missed you, Keith. Yeah, it was really busy. Today was really, really busy. It was definitely a lot of foot traffic. Brian, thank you so much. Good to have you here. And Mark Hoyle rounding out the roll call. So yes. Hey everyone, first time in this chat. Good to have you here, Jason. Welcome to the Chill and Chat. I've done these a number of times. I usually do these Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm glad you're here. Hope you enjoy it. Kind of just go off the cuff here a little bit. That's typically how I do it. So yeah, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So all right, we talked a little bit about Strongsville. Got that out of the way. I think, at this point now we're just kind of moving forward from that into potentially something else. Whatever that may be, I don't know. So I put out a video this weekend. I thought it would be an enticing topic to discuss, and I asked 8 people. I asked two dealers, Garrett and from Ballpark Memories and Howard Chasser, of a few of my favorite things, and I also asked 6 collectors within our community just their thoughts. And so I'll kind of just open this up to the chat because. I was hoping the video would get a little bit more traction, not so much for because I would care about the viewership. It was more just I wanted to kind of have a really deep dialogue into this. So I'm going to bring this into the chat a little bit. For those that did comment on that video, I want to say thank you. I haven't responded to everybody, but I will. But let's talk about this now. And that is this question. Now we know, I'll preface this before the question. We know grading has a lot of issues. PSA, all the grading companies, they have their issues. They have their, I guess if we're gonna call it out, we'll just say PSA. PSA has its issues, and turnaround time, SGC as well, turnaround time. But for the sheer sake of just focusing on the parent company collectors, PSA, just the golden child of grading. PSA's turnaround time is really bad. Their consistency needs a lot of work. Pricing obviously is just a lot of areas that are just making collectors unhappy. Not the Collectors Corporation, but the collectors, us as collectors, it's falling short. So I asked this question to everybody, because obviously if we had to prioritize, we would just want to choose everything. We want to choose everything to fix. We want to fix turnaround time. We want to fix pricing. But if you had to decide between these between 3, let's say 4, if you had to decide between turnaround time, pricing, consistency, or something else, what would it be and why? You can only choose one. If there was one thing that grading companies needed to do right now to fix whatever issues they have, what would it be and why? And it seemed as though, based on the responses, a majority of collectors and dealers responded with consistency. That they have to figure out the consistency first, because there's way too much not fluctuation. I can't really think of the word, but there's just way too much irresponsible standardizations not being held properly, practices not being implemented properly. And so I'm reading here that, here we go. Agree max consistency is the most important criteria. Consistency in standards. Trevor says consistency. Brent says correct rating, also known as consistency. Adam chose consistency, in my opinion, hands down the most important. 11 do not grades for me in my last order, Orlando, several of which I already own graded examples. Turnaround time isn't that important to me. I'm a patient guy. Okay, so Drew is okay with, the taking their time as long as they're consistent, I would think. Grading companies have so many issues right now. There's no wrong answer on this question. I would like them to fix their transparency. So let's talk a little bit about what Andy's mentioning here with transparency. And this was something that Mike from Jayhawker Cards got into, is the fact that there's very little transparency in the grading world, and because things are moving at a rapid pace with all these mergers and all these acquisitions, it's making collectors very, very concerned with the future. And it's just like, what's the what's the future of SGC? Why is it that they're going from 2 weeks to a month to now it looks like 2 months, and it keeps on growing. It keeps expanding. And so I have my theories on why, but everybody is wondering, and that's all we're doing is we're purely just kind of speculating at this point. But the fact that there's no transparency on it, there's no understanding of why it's taking so long. It's just delays. There's just delays. Like, if there's something that we should know about, we're investing. We're putting money into this. We're putting money into our cards being graded, and it's taking months, and all you're saying is that there's delays. All you're saying now is, oh, there's just delays. We're slow. We're backed up. Why are you backed up? Be transparent. We deserve to know. We deserve to have some understanding of what's going on. No transparency. Keep periodically testing the graders to keep up high standards. They're sweeping something down the rug, perhaps. Mookie says the turnaround time. I said turnaround time. Now I like this transparency response, which means I have consistency issues. SGC is almost at 3 months now. It's absurd. Absolutely absurd. Why can comic books have graders notes but not cards? Great question. Consistency, turnaround time, price in that order for me. So Trevor, focusing on consistency, getting that under control. Mike is saying you left out lowering the price. They need to get it down to 15 or less. I'm tired of getting price gouge. It's why I've gone the John Mangini route for sure. And that's another thing is that should grading companies, should PSA be fearful that this might sound like a silly question, but should they be fearful that people will stop submitting? I know how Mark feels about PSA. Everything PSA touches turns to shit. So I'm not sure what you mean, Willow Wonka. Graders do have grading notes for every card. They just don't share them. That's unfortunate. Mookie experiencing cognitive dissonance. That tells me they have horrible customer service and Sammy. It's strange, in a sense they do. I don't have a lot of experience with PSA. I just hear the horror stories from what you guys share. But with SGC, I will say that, they're not transparent. They're not transparent, but I will say they do get back to you. The guy, Tyler, I think his name is Tyler. He is now the new, he's the new Brent. Brent was the guy who sent all the emails out for customer service, and now it's Tyler. I'm not sure what happened there, but so it is what it is. I will give Tyler credit. He does respond, but he doesn't give really any details as far as why things are. It's just that there's delays. Ripping for Rushman says you got to have subgrades. Rob says I have a very important card to me coming in the mail this week, and it's an old SGC slab. I want to get a new tux, but I'm worried about sending it to SGC nowadays. Yeah, Rob. So I sent in a couple. I resubmitted a bunch of about 2 or 3 cards in my last SJC order, and I submitted them to get reholdered. And it took about I submitted them. God, it must have been October maybe. Now this was before I think things got even more delayed. So mine came back in about a month, a little over a month. So at that point it was a month. And so, but it came back fine. I got my reholders, but I understand your concern. Right now, I'd be a little concerned too. There's definitely some more things that I definitely want to grade, but I just don't see the point right now. So, Thunder grading, take my. I don't think so. Unless you plan on selling it soon, Rob, I keep it as is. Yeah, it's good. It's a good perspective. They won't change until the lack of submissions force them to, which at this point, I can't imagine them slowing down. Their numbers seem to be getting better. We don't know how their graders are trained. Do they have quotas for grades? I don't know. I don't know either. I canceled my PSA subscription. The pricing is so bad that they rarely offer specials for vintage cards. I don't know how often they've done it since I've gotten back into it. Maybe once, most. So Andy says that he has 2 orders out with the one I sent late October at post grade now. Late October, so now you're looking at November, all of November, all of December. So 2 months, 2 months waiting. That's a long time, man. That's a really long time. Probably the worst I've seen it since getting back into this. I just got an SGC order back, basically a full 2 months door to door. It's heartbreaking. Steve with the PH, I do have one question, Sammy. Is it only the vintage community that has this distaste towards PSA, or is it all groups? It's a good question. I don't know. I'd imagine, I'd imagine that other. I only know what I know, which is the vintage sphere, and being at card shows and having discussions with dealers, and it's affecting everybody. It's affecting dealers as well. They want to be able to. They send things out for grading, and then it's just like it's messing up their business. And with SGC canceling bulk submissions now, it really kind of affects it. It really hurts their business model, their whole business focus. So, but I don't know. I imagine it's probably also hurting modern as well, because you have these guys that are submitting modern cards and they want to get it back as soon as possible, but it's affecting their business too. I think it's affecting everybody. Scott, good to have you here, my friend. Thank you so much for coming by. And so Adam says, I think modern collectors are still overall okay with PSA. It's how they maximize profits. Okay. So I'd say Adam has his finger on the pulse with this one. Max says, SGC got my order October 6th and put it into received. 4 days later, they said they needed to research and clearly didn't with the extra time. Yeah, Max, you told me about your situation, and I feel for you, man. Like, that's incredibly frustrating. And I'm hoping that it gets resolved soon. Everyone who is not a PSA shill hates PSA. So yeah, there you have it, man. I mean, there's clearly some issues. A lot of issues, and it's really honestly, it's taking a dark turn for a lot of collectors. I mean, it's corporate, it's corporate America really taking a stranglehold over the hobby, and it hurts, man. It does hurt. For me, for me, it's not a huge concern. It's concerning, and you want to be able to find a resolution. But for others, I know it's just like enough is enough. When it's not just the grading companies. You have, the National is turning. It has a very strong corporate feel now, to where they're controlling every aspect of your experience there. And it's just, it really puts a sour taste in my mouth. It's really, it's becoming more of a challenge, and it's a grueling process of, putting money aside like putting thousands of dollars aside, not just to buy cards, but putting thousands of dollars, you're potentially spending more on the trip than you are for buying cards. And maybe that's the case for some people, for a lot of people. But I mean, it seems like this upcoming year or this year, and this year's national, hotels are 75 or up by like 75%. What should have cost you like 175, like 150 to 175 a room is now costing $400 to $500 a night. And I harped this to death, so I apologize if I'm bringing this up again, but it's disgraceful. It's terrible that you can't book a hotel. You can't book one of the hotel rooms across the street from the show, from the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center. You have to book a hotel that's a mile away. Yeah, and I see what the traffic looks like. I saw what the traffic looked like last year. To be able to, I know it's like a 5-minute drive, but it turns into a 10 or 15-minute drive if you're driving. Like, and also the convenience of being able to leave the show if you want to, go back to your hotel, relax and rest. And I did whatever I could to try to get a room this year at the Crown Plaza or any of the hotels across the street, and they were all booked. You couldn't book them. You couldn't book them a week after the National. And if anybody who did got incredibly lucky, because when I called that booking agency that the National works with, and I told them, I said, why is it that last year that everybody that I know was able to book a room a week after, 2 weeks after, 4 or 5 months later even? They had no issues booking at the Crown Plaza, no issues booking at the Hilton or whatever hotel nearby. They had no issues there. They were able to get a room without a problem at a good rate, at a good price that they can afford. But now, if I want to get a room, I have to book myself at a hotel a mile and a half, 2 miles away. And all they could tell me was, well, the last year the hotels were not supposed to do that, and they just got lucky. I smell bullshit on that. Complete bullshit. Complete bullshit. They're rewriting the script, and they're taking a complete stranglehold over this experience. And I've actually considered, I mean, I don't know how others feel, but I've considered not going to the National this year because of the price hikes. Like, again, similar to Strongsville, it's all about kind of hanging out and seeing each other, and that's what's keeping me wanting to come. Is the fact that we're all going to hang out with each other again, have these awesome events. But the fact that hotels have tripled in price, and you can only get a hotel room a mile and a half away, and have to potentially walk like 45 minutes to an hour in terrible heat, or find yourself in traffic with the traffic cops stopping cars like half a mile away. It'll take forever to get there. And it sucks. It sucks not being able to leave the show and relax, knowing at the convenience that you have to do that. A little fired up, so I apologize, but just had to get I meant, that's just how I feel about all this. Let me check in with the chat. I've obviously neglected a little bit here to Jake, what's up, my buddy? What's up, my friend? Good to have you here. Carlo says, I think they all need more initials. There's not enough these days. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do to fix it. They don't listen to collectors. Every big card show will be like the National eventually. Look at Strongsville. Let's not go that far. I know it's, there's a lot of concern there, but let's hold off and see how this goes this year. Planning to utilize Stuke's rickshaw service. I think eventually the National may be a one and done for many, as regional shows like Philly, Dallas step up their game. The Philly show is excellent. Philly show is excellent. That is turning now into my favorite show. I love going to it, and I'm really hoping that Neil and Ray host another hangout afterwards on that Saturday. I might actually um, stay the night at that hotel. It looked like it was a lot of fun. I'll do my Um, definitely have to vent. Split the fare with you. So Jake's saying pretty lucky to book the Western O'Hare, which I think is just outside the zone of control. It's about a 15-minute walk. That's what I heard too. I think it's about 15. I was gonna book there, and I think the prices at the time, I don't know if they still are, but the price was like 400 a night. So it's just crazy, man. It's crazy. I don't know what you got it for, Jake. I hope you got a better rate. As long as we keep going and supporting the National, they will continue to make it more difficult to enjoy. Why don't we skip the National and go to the Dallas show, Philly Shriners, or some other? Um, yeah, I mean the Philly show is only what is it? Uh, Practically a month and a half right after the National. I never been to the Dallas show. Shriners is great. Shriners only happens twice a year in the but there are two different groups that run that show. So you have the Shriner show that a lot of the YouTubers tend to gravitate to is the one in the fall. That is the Greater Boston Sports Collectors Convention. That's the group that runs that show. And I don't know who the other group is. And if Jake is still in here, I'm sure he can mention it who it is. Philly is certainly a show I'd like to attend again. It's a lot of fun, and they've expanded as well. Yeah, they're turning into a heavy favorite right now because they're making it all about like. I think they're making it more for the collector experience than for the corporations. Uh, they shouldn't have booked Chicago for 3 years. I also have no interest in going to Detroit. The National 89, I overheard a dealer from Detroit tell another dealer it was cheaper to fly in each day instead of booking a hotel. That's crazy. That's crazy. Jason says, "Are the old strip cards?" I'm gonna wait till you because I see you're putting something in there, so I'm gonna wait till you write it all out. The other group for Shriners is Lucky's, which runs the White Plains. Okay, so yeah, Lucky's is now they're getting involved with a lot of the big shows. Since they bought out the rights from the Jim Ryan group. Yeah, James is saying everything is about 1.8 miles away. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy now. As a West Coaster, the National seems like the main option to see as many people as possible. Various people will be at regional shows, but the size of the national popularity make it the option. That's what it is right now. So Jason's asking, are strip cards worth collecting? Yeah, it's to each of their own. I know many people like strip cards. Some people don't like them. So I can't really tell you if it's worth collecting or not. Everybody has a different preference on what they like to collect based on various parameters. So I think they're cool looking. They're not so much for me because a lot of I'm such a strict player collector between Mays, Mathewson, and Seaver. And so Mathewson appears on some strip cards in the 20s, but not that many. So for me, it's not really something that I gravitate to, but I know there's a lot of guys here that do. Yeah, this year the April Shriners is the week after Strongsville. Doubt I'd go for more than one day. Ideally, I'll be broke. I think a lot of people will be in that same boat for sure. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, to Strongsville. I'm currently in savings mode. I'm working on the binder. That's always something, my binder pickups. I'm actually almost done with filling up my binder. So the goal is to continue putting more and more vintage into it. I have kind of a mix of some modern cards celebrating some vintage players. But yeah, that's going to be kind of the focus. I don't really, I guess I have some cards in mind as far as what I want. I haven't really kind of wrapped my head around it. I know everyone's doing these videos as far as like what their 2026 hobby goals are, and I don't really know what mine are yet. I kind of go with the flow on things right now. Since I got my die cut Mathewson, that was my giant, big, massive purchase. So since I got that, I've kind of just been settling down a little bit. Um, I picked up, the Seaver Venezuelan. This one was one of my most recent pickups. It has paper loss on the back, but the front is what it's all about. This was my most recent pickup. I shared this in my video today. Got this in a Facebook group. The Transagram figurine of Louis Tiant, or Taint, Louis Taint. So, and then the card on the back, like obviously this is kind of what you want to look for, is that the card, it looks really, really good. Some little scuffs here and there, but no creases, no wrinkles. That's the big thing. The front is, a little beat up, but it's a cool piece. Goes with my maze really nicely. And for what, somehow, this little bulldog, I don't know if it's a bulldog or what, but it's a dog, was I guess the kid that had it had that bulldog glued to the had it glued to the plate that Tiant sits on. And I just wonder maybe if the kid thought Tiant was a bulldog on the mound, and he was he was a beast. He was a beast. Borderline Hall of Famer. You can argue that he should be in the Hall of Fame, but pretty cool. So Orlando says that I'm not a fan of strip cards, cartoons to me. Mark agrees. Andy's asking any cards to share with us tonight. Nothing new. Nothing that I haven't shared already. I didn't pick up anything at the Garfield show today, so I don't have any new cards other than what I've shown in my video. Jake says he's going to White Plains a couple weeks. Should be there Saturday, depending on the weather. I don't know. I'm anticipating going on Friday because I'm probably going to be working that weekend. So I want to go at least on Friday. Probably be working Saturday, so I won't be able to enjoy the show with you guys. One of the best second-year cards ever. Thank you, Mike. The Seaver is pretty great. And thank you, Mark. Yeah, the Transagram is awesome. I'm sad to say I missed out on the 68 Transagram Seaver. 69 Transagram Seaver on eBay. There was an auction this weekend where this guy, a person, seller, I don't know, male or female, but this seller was auctioning off a Hank Aaron and Tom Seaver Transagram in figures, box, card, everything. The Hank Aaron was worse off than the Seaver, but I bid heavily on it. The Seaver never ever comes up. Hank Aaron I've seen before at shows, but not the Seaver. And so I put in a very strong bid on it. And, unfortunately, I got sniped at the very end. Somebody put in, like a Gixon bid and won both of them. But then it's strange because then I saw the Hank Aaron reappear on its own listing, maybe a half hour later, maybe an hour later. And so I'm thinking, like, what's that about? But it is what it is. That's how it goes sometimes. So now I can put my money into something else, save it up, and see what's out there. I'll be more selective and patient this year. No specific goals. I'm kind of with you on that, Orlando. I have been to one show since the National, and that was the Toronto Expo in November. Boy, I'm looking forward to Independence. Just can't wait to see everyone. Thank you, Andy. Anyone going to the 300 table show in Arkansas next weekend? That's a lot of tables. Yeah. I'm doing Friday too. Awesome, Keith. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Those who know me, that 52 Top Jackies is high on my list, but I'll be very selective trying to get this one. Yeah. I think I have good feeling you'll find one for yourself, Stephen. I know that's a very big, desirable card for a lot of people. What is on your hat, Sammy? This is an old hat of the Bowie Bay Sox, who are, I think, now called the Chesapeake Bay Sox. This is one of their alternative hats that they have. So it's a minor league team for the Baltimore Orioles, AA in particular. For strip cards with decent artworks that look like the players, I'd recommend the 1920 W519 and W21 516. So there you go. John 3D 80s Kid to the rescue, providing some insight on some awesome strip cards. Jacob, I haven't picked up any new cards in months going back to last year. Perfect. So you're ready to go. You're ready to go for a new one. And good to have you here, John. Appreciate you being here. Go O's. They have Alonzo now. So yeah, man. I don't know really what to show at this point. You've seen all the stuff that I have. Uh, I'm trying to think because I'm considering wanting to, to set up again at shows in the future, but um, now's not a great time at the moment. Oh, here we go. Jake's asking, can you refresh me on your connection to the Pressman games? I saw your comment on Mark Hoyle's video. Yes. So my grandmother's cousin is the Pressman family, and the Pressman family they started. So Edward, if you're familiar with Edward Pressman is I think the son. I think he was unless yeah. So it gets a little fuzzy for me. I think he's the son of the founder of Pressman Toys, either the son of the founder, but Edward Pressman I think is a cousin to my grandmother, and he passed away, but he was an executive producer for a lot of big films like American Psycho and what are the ones Wall Street and so forth. So I believe the Pressman family in general started the company Pressman Toys, and they like a month. I think they got the license to create these games. They must not have gotten the approval from Major League Baseball to show, the logos or anything like that, which is why you don't see the New York Mets logo on the front of Tom Seaver's game. I don't know if it's with Yaz either with the Red Sox, but I think they got the license for Yaz to use Yaz, to have Roger Maris and Tom Seaver. I don't know if there's a fourth one. So pretty cool. Haven't grabbed more than a handful of cards on the last year. Yeah, Mark. Mark has a lot though. You have a big collection, Mark. I'm worried Jake left Mark Hoyle cupboard bare after that visit. Who wouldn't? He's got some great stuff. Howdy from Tucson, everyone. Yank Me Card Steve, good to have you here from Tucson, my friend. Thank you. Hope the weather is treating you nicely there. I am kind of picky as the appearance and quality, but not a high-end collector like a lot of us. Looking for the best one that I can that will fit my budget, but most of all, the one I like the most, for sure. And you want to find. It's a bit of a challenge. You want to find the best value you can, but you also don't want to compromise on the quality if you don't have to. That's why this kind of goes to show the inconsistencies of grading. There's beautiful twos out there and there's ugly fives. So there you have it. Great episode today, Jim, on the 72s. You did a great job with the Rose Dilemma. Very cool. Very cool. Have to check that out. And yeah, Jake, it's a long history, but it's cool. Peeps, what's up, my friend? Good to have you here. So talked about a lot. What's on the horizon? What is next? Is there? Let's finish off with this. Let's finish off this. And Mookie, you're probably right. We should really start over for Peeps. But we're going to segue into something to finish tonight's live stream. I need to have a full-on purpose for tonight's live stream, and that is this simple opinion piece, which is with the turnaround times being what they are, with the inconsistencies and just everything going the way it's going. I know CGC does a lot with trading card game cards, TCG cards, but based on the gem rate statistics, it looks like they outperformed SGC in baseball submissions. And while I go to shows almost every weekend, and while I haven't seen a lot of CGC slabbed cards out in display cases, it makes me wonder, are we going to see a movement in place where we are going to be seeing a lot of CGC cards making appearances in display cases? Are we going to see a CGC takeover where you're still going to have SGC cards, SGC graded cards, but are we going to start seeing display cases of with a balance of PSA, SGC, and now CGC making themselves making way into these bargain boxes or display cases? And it's gonna, I think, a telltale of this will be when, if you have access to shows and you start seeing it, if we start seeing a movement, we start seeing more CGC cards in display cases, I think that's going to be a sign where you start taking note that CGC is here to stay. And you'll see it in Facebook groups. So right now, based on what I'm seeing at shows, it's still a PSA and SGC sort of game with a little bit of Beckett here and there, but mostly PSA and SGC slabs dominating the display cases. And I'm only talking about vintage. I'm not talking about modern, just vintage, because I don't really look too much into the modern market, into the modern sphere of things. I kind of just focus on the vintage tables and the vintage dealers, and I'm seeing what they're grading and who they're grading it with, or what cards they have. And I can tell you right now, based on everything, it's a purely PSA and SGC world when it comes to the vintage stuff. That's what I'm seeing. So do CGC slab photo packs or similar items like that? I don't know. I haven't looked too far into them yet. Which dealers would you recommend for vintage cards? There's a number of them. There's plenty of names: Stan, Ash, William Chappell. There's a number of dealers out there. Howard Chasser. I mean, there's Leighton Sheldon of Just Collect. I'm wearing the shirt. So a number of dealers out there that I'd strongly recommend. I'm going to need a better set registry solution before I switch to CGC. So yeah, for those that are big on the set registry as well, that's, everyone has a necessary need for certain things to kind of go the way they need to go. CGC can certainly grow. It feels like vintage collectors are desperate for a better option than what we have now. Let's see. Looks like Yankee Card Steve's is, of the last 5 graded cards I purchased on eBay, 2 were CGC. That's interesting. I'm certainly considering a CGC submission myself. My main issue is the internal plastic sleeve that they use for much of the pre-war issue. It's not super clear like the holder. So the aesthetic, and also the protection aspect of it is a concern. That's a fair point. Not sure where others are, but I did not re-up my PSA membership as the specials dried up and the time is too much. Not the only one, peeps. It seems like there's a number of people here that have also kind of gone that route. And they were all vintage. Interesting. That's good to hear, Steve. That's actually really useful. I have the same concern, Max. And Matt is in the trenches every weekend, and he tells me he still has a hard time selling vintage cards and his CGC slabs. Yeah, and I think that's true because it's not seen. It's not common. As someone who goes to shows now, typically on the other side of the table, not as a dealer anymore, but walking in as a buyer. Listen, I harp on this. You buy the card, not the grade. You buy the card, not the grade. Buy the card, not the holder. If a card looks a certain way to you, that should be what the focus. Like, to me, that's what I would look for. If I find a 1964 Willie Mays and it's beautifully centered and it's in a CGC slab, and the price is right for it, sure. But I get it. Not everybody thinks that way, and it can be very, very difficult because right now CGC is not synonymous with vintage. It's just not. They're not connected yet, or they may not connect. It just depends on how things go. But I wonder if SGC continues to slow down, are we going to see a huge movement of vintage submitters going that way? I have a card coming back in an NBA slab, so that's another one. That's another slab that I know people are looking into as well. CGC is releasing tall boy holders and postcard size holders. I think this will really help them in pre-war because it expands the options of what people can send. That's a great point, and that actually that's enticing to me because I do have a lot of oversized stuff. Other than hand cut, odd size, or some pre-war cards, I'm planning on using CGC moving forward. I'm going to definitely send them my in-person autograph cards. Interesting. I look forward to kind of hearing how your experience goes, Trevor, because I think that will definitely be very helpful to everybody that is curious about this, because I think there is some curiosity there. What do you think about the Jeter grade? I don't know. I don't know about the Jeter grading company. Um, Responding to Trevor, that is why I think their new holder sizes will help. People right now have to hold back some of their cards they want to send. Yeah. And Orlando says CGC has good vintage graders and Andy Berman charge, but cards sell for much less than these holders. But for how long? That's the big question. How long? Do you think, and I'm asking this in the chat, but do you think that CGC will have more credibility and value to their slabs if you start seeing more vintage at shows, or start seeing them in the Facebook groups or on Instagram or on eBay or in auction houses? Once you start seeing them more and more, the credibility will only go up, thus the value will probably go up as well. I have two cards in the CGC JSA holders, one signed T206 and T205. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So there you have it. I think, it's all about right now. Right now, it's, it's too early to tell. And, we're going to have to sit and wait and see how this all goes. CGC has a lot of hype behind it right now. There's definitely a lot of interest, and I know there's been some dealers who have submitted to them. There might be some trial run periods where people are submitting just to see how things go and see how they sell. But as Jake was saying, I mean, Matt from Providence. He's in the trenches. He does this every single weekend. He's a dealer, and it sounds like he's struggling to get to move those cards. But I have a feeling that, like I said, once, if things kind of keep going the way they're going with SGC taking forever, PSA taking forever, a general mistrust in these grading companies, people are going to want an alternative brand. And I think once you start getting more submissions and you start seeing these cards pop up more, or start seeing these slabs pop up more, they'll gain some traction. Let's see. People still like the Tux, for sure. People definitely still like the Tux. And Orlando says he prefers the Tux. Yeah. I have a few CGC graded cards. Their slabs are the clearest ones I've seen yet. Keith says, I have a JSA cert card. They told me I'd have to pay to re-authenticate. I think it would be natural to view CGC as a factor the more we see vintage cards in their slabs. It's up to this community. If you want CGC to be a player, start slabbing with them now. And so that's, I haven't gotten to that point yet to want to do that. But then again, I'm not somebody that's grading all the time. I think, it's going to be more dealers doing this than collectors, I would say, because when you start seeing them at shows, or you start seeing them online on auctions and so forth, that's kind of where the traction will start. You say the Tuxes still look the best. I agree. I heard Graders had a choice to leave SGC and go to PSA or stay, so I guess that's why SGC is taking so long. My understanding is that they were sent over to PSA for training purposes to learn PSA's process. But again, we're left in things are not so transparent right now. Yeah, Tux is greater than PSA. I agree. I agree completely on that. I enjoy SGC slabs. I always just prefer going with them. Just a much a clear understanding of the pricing and so forth. Even though it's right now it's not looking good for them. CGC looks okay for modern, but not a solution for vintage cards. I see them more as art, and SGC was obviously the go-to for presentation. Someone needs to step in and do something similar. And I think that's I want to say NBA is doing that. Or is it NBA? Whatever. I have to go back to where Jake mentioned it. Yeah, NBA. NBA kind of has that sort of feel to it a little bit. Very, I think it's. Let me look one up. NBA. Let me see. Yeah, the Mike Baker authenticated. I want to say their slab sort of looks somewhat similar, but not exactly. Maybe not. I think it's not. No, it's not exactly. Not like it. It's clear. It has the gold label on it. So I'm wrong. Not the case. Okay. So there you have it. NBA may be credible, but the slabs aren't great. Yeah. And Sven says that CGC is more for Pokemon. All right. They're not even good. Remind me, what was Mike Baker's previous grading company? Was it GAI? Was he part of GAI? I thought he was, but I could be wrong. Anyway, yeah, it was GAI. So Jake says the big card I'm more focused on is getting a vintage George Washington. That's pretty cool. There's some good ones out there. All right, guys, I think we've hit a plateau at this point. So as you guys know, triple header tonight. Alex from Bowman 53 is on at 8:00. I think John is on at 9:00 with 4 collectors. I want to say thank you guys for hanging out with me here, listening to me ramble on about Strongsville and grading and so forth. So I appreciate you guys chiming in. Obviously, there's a lot to say on the topic. So hope you guys have a good start to your week, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everybody.